Hi guys, welcome to our ECOFIN specific training slash office hours webinar. Super excited about this opportunity to get to spend a little bit more time answering your personalized questions about ECOFIN at HMUN Dubai this year. So before we get into that, I'll introduce myself. I'll tell you a little bit about committees or like my vision for committee, and then we can jump straight into any questions you have about the H1 Dubai ECOFIN specific experience. So my name is Ved. I study applied math at Harvard College, and I am the Under Secretary General for Operations for H1 Dubai. And this year I'll be the Director of ECOFIN at H1 Dubai. My vision for this committee, I think that really I'm very much in favor of letting the delegates shape the committee experience as they find fitting. So to that end, whichever of the topics you would like to pursue more deeply, again, we offer to, so that that decision is yours. And then further, how you like what elements or what aspects of that agenda you choose to explore at depth in terms of your working papers and draft resolutions. I have no preference really. I'm not trying to steer you in any particular way, and it's an opportunity for you to take this committee where you'd like to. And so I want to use this time basically to address questions about our committee. Think of this as office hours. You can have a specific pointed question, or if you just want to hear me ramble about committee proceedings, format, ROP, I'm more than happy to do that as well. It's really whatever you would like to make of it. And so I'd encourage all of you to use the uh, chat features. I believe it's the Q&A box to input any questions you have about the ECOFIN, and then I'll take this time to walk you through any aspect of committee that seems fitting. But really, it's like engaging, or it's meant to be an engaging office hours. So it's any of the questions you have that I would love to answer. I don't have a pre-prepared presentation or speech for you. So yeah, I'll just stay in the meeting and just wait to see as questions come in, and then I'll answer them. I don't see any questions yet in the chat, so why don't I give you guys 2 minutes to send over any of your first questions or first thoughts uh, into the Q&A box, and then I'll go over those. And in the meantime, I'll think about anything else while I have many of you on call that would be worth discussing as well if you don't have questions. But remember, there's no stupid question. If there's a question in your mind, it's probably something that one of the other delegates who is also on the webinar might be thinking or might have in their mind. And so anything you ask will benefit both you and others who are attending or watching this recording. So that's just going to be super useful for you and everyone to ensure we're all on the same page about our committee. But yeah, I'll give you guys 2 minutes, and then if you have no further questions, I'll pick up some stuff out of like ROP to discuss for a little bit if that sounds okay. Okay, awesome. I'll get started, but as I answer these questions and inevitably more questions come up, please feel free to send them. So I'll begin with the first question, which is, will we be discussing just one topic or both? And if it's the latter, will we vote on the order in which they're discussed? So this is a fantastic question, and we cover this in some of our ROP sessions. So if you have not had the opportunity to attend them, it would be really productive to watch their recordings because it might like help you, brush up on some of these aspects of ROP because they do differ from circuit to circuit. You may be a delegate from the India circuit or from the Dubai circuit or from a European circuit, and we bring our H1 procedure or the American procedure there. And so there's these slight nuances that are very useful to just brush up on and ensure you're on the same page with our team with regards to. And so this is one of those major ones, which is that at H1, in H1 Dubai, we'll be discussing just one topic in our committee at the ECOFIN. So that means that we will be discussing either topic A, which is augmenting human capital to reduce the skills gap, or topic B, which is the economic future of clean energy development. We don't discuss both. And so you use the first session in committee to decide as a committee which topic you want to discuss. How do you do that? So the procedure there would be that when committee begins, you'd give your first set of speeches. This would be, in the form like after roll call and those formal procedures. This will be, usually proposed through a motion for a moderated caucus to discuss which or like of the two agendas you would like to set. And then when we're in that period, as a delegate, you will advocate for the topic you want to see discussed. And so after that, we move into voting, and we will then use those speeches, that early lobbying time, to assess which of the two topics, topic A or topic B, do you want us to cover in committee. So it's very important that all of you come prepared with information, research on both topic A and topic B, because committee could swing either way. But more fascinatingly, you also have the opportunity to help swing committee by picking one of the two agendas and doing, perhaps more research there and priming yourself for that topic by, when you get there, giving a strong and passionate speech about why you think that's a more pressing agenda to discuss more important concerns for us to, look into. And then also lobbying more strongly with fellow delegates when we're there in the early parts of session one to ensure that that's the one that gets passed. So yes, we do only discuss one, and then we vote not on the order in which they're discussed, but we just vote on which one we're going to discuss. And that ends up being either topic A or topic B, which is up to you guys. Our next question is, in our opening speeches, do we only address one of the topics or address both? That's a very good question. So in your first speech, typically will be a speech that's about the topic you want to see discussed, because you'll be asked in that initial moderated caucus, for example, let's say I was the delegate of the US, I'd raise my placard, I'd be notice this after roll call and say, the delegate of the US would like to suspend formal debate and move into a moderated caucus with time parameters, let's say 10 minutes total, 1 minute speaking time per speaker, to discuss setting the topic or like setting the agenda or which topic to set. And then there'd be 10 speakers, so 10 delegates, who would give a speech about whether they would prefer topic A or topic B and why they think the committee should go for topic A or topic B. And so that's the time in which both topics would be addressed. And typically this would be because a good answer to this question would look at what would topic A committee look like, what would topic B committee look like, and what should we give our attention to, because what are the problems we want to solve and we want to look into more deeply, or that we're well positioned to solve. And so that's what that opening speech is. If you want to think about it as an opening speech, should have some elements of both. But the main GSL speech that happens afterwards, which is much bigger, like if this was 10 or 15 speakers, the next one we're thinking 30, 40 speakers, that one is going to be more topic specific. And so it makes sense to have different ideas in mind. While we do not allow pre-writing in any form of speeches before the conference, you should have general ideas of what you would deliver for that first 90-second speech if committee swings topic A or if it swings topic B. And that's a very important part of the skill set that we're trying to build here at HMUN Dubai as well, or with like our HMUN conferences, because one of those values are we want to be a lot like the real world. And in the real world, you don't know what's going to hit you, what the topic is going to be. Things are changing, big events happen, and the media shifts focus, shifts attention. And so we want all of you to be like flexible, light on your toes, and to be able to jump topics with ease without feeling like without feeling any degree of discomfort or difficulty. But yeah, please keep the questions coming. These are really helpful. We have another question, which is, do your country's foreign policies matter while forming blocs? This is a very good question. So yes and no. And so what I mean by that is Largely HMUN policy diverts, like HMUN values divert from some of the local circuits, most notably from the Indian circuit, in that foreign policy at HMUN does not matter when it comes down to forming blocks. And by that we mean that we think it's very reasonable, for example, for the delegation of the US and the delegation of Russia to work together, or for the delegation of China and the delegation of India to work together, or better yet, for the delegation of Pakistan and the delegation of India to work together. Because, and the reason we think that that's okay is, I think there's often a lot of emphasis people put on how could this country and this country who do not get along work on a piece of paperwork together. Like, how could DPRK and South Korea work on a piece of paper together? But what we need to recognize is that where certain visions align, it makes a lot of sense for a pair of countries, for example, to work together. If I go back to this India-China example, perhaps India and China would not work in the same bloc on a security or demilitarization topic because of their active border conflict in Kashmir. However, India and China might work together for a committee that focuses on an economic agenda because they have an economic partnership, for example, through their program, through their alliance BRICS. So there are these many different nuances that are very important to note, and for that reason, at HMUN, we're a little less worried about who you work with and a little more worried about why you choose to work with them. And as long as that latter part of why you're working with this set of countries, what your common vision is aligned, then what your country is or what it represents matters a lot less. And so to that end, we encourage you to work with as diverse a group of people as you can in your committee. Don't be worried about, oh, I can't work with this delegate because because their country policy is too opposed to mine. Or sorry, because their country is too opposed to mine. If the policy they're advocating for in their speeches is opposed to yours, then don't work for them. But even if their country is pointed away from yours in international relations, but you see they have the same outlook on the agenda as you do, that's the part where we really emulate foreign relations, because those countries would actually work together. Because while you may not get along on certain views, you do get along on others, and those are the ones that you want to focus on so that you can collaborate on fellow partners with. And so knowing this really is very productive in committee, because a lot of people say, oh, I can't work with this country because there's this conflict of interest, or they're allied with, let's say, Russia, and we're more allied with the US. These are not concerns as long as you have the same vision related to the agenda, the agenda elements. That's what matters, and those are the things that we assess collaboration, compromise, and all of those values on. So countries' foreign policies matter in that the countries themselves don't matter, like if they're friends of yours, not friends of yours, but their foreign policies on this specific agenda matter. What do they think in particular about green energy? Are they aligned? Do they have the same things to gain, same things to lose, and so forth? So those are the things I would emphasize when it comes down to analyzing foreign policy in committee. Our next question is, can our GSLs be written before committee? So GSLs cannot be written before committee because we have a strict no pre-writing policy. And this has a few motivations. The primary motivation is we don't want you all to work on committee before committee begins. And the reason is that if we feel that you're working before committee, that takes away from the committee experience, because it means a lot more is front-loaded, and then things that happen during committee, like people may respond to them with different degrees of familiarity, with different degrees of preparation generally, and that's not very good. And secondly, any form of pre-writing before committee, even like the GSLs, becomes tricky because you don't know the direction committee is going to go in. So it's not really useful to pre-prepare to that extent. For example, you don't even know what agenda committee is going to set. There's two topics, there's topic A and topic B, and you don't even know which one the committee is going to pass. You might have a preference. You might say, I think topic B, I would have more to discuss or more to develop, or topic A seems more natural to me. But there's no such consensus yet within the committee because you don't know what other delegates in ECOFIN are thinking. And so these are some of the reasons that we have this policy where we do not allow any pre-writing. And so it should make your life easier because you don't have to worry about writing your speech before you come to committee. You can give a more free-flowing speech. You can have some bullet points that you jot down on like a sticky note. Nothing bigger really than the palm of your hand is needed. And you can just look down in them because, again, you don't want to be reading or sound like you've memorized a script that doesn't come off as very natural. And then your ideas perhaps get a little lost. So do not pre-write GSLs before committee. This is in violation of our pre-writing policy. And really, it's not in your interest or in our interest because it doesn't come off well when you deliver such a speech. And it's so hard to invest so much time to prepare for all of those elements. Rather, spend more time focusing on understanding all elements of the background guide as they pertain to both topics, doing further research related to your own country in relation to these topics to see what kind of ideas you might want to champion. But don't, like our policy, just don't try to put anything down on paper that you think would qualify as pre-writing. And if you have any more like personal concerns or questions about how this policy may apply to you, you can always email me at the ECOFIN HMUN Dubai email address, which is on the HMUN Dubai website, or at the operations email address either. Uh, so yeah, no, thank you guys for these questions. Please keep sending them through. I'm just going to go and grab my charger really quickly, but I hope that by the time I'm back, we have a few more questions. Yeah, and I'll give it like another like 4 to 5 minutes for another round of questions because I'd see it's like 15 right now. So let's give it 5 minutes, have some more questions come in, and then I'll go through another round of questions. But yeah, I'm just gonna go grab my charger, come back, and I hope to see some more questions when I'm back. Awesome. So I'll take the next round of questions now. Again, like I said, keep having these coming on the chat. They're super helpful in that they'll help you understand more about the committee topic, anything that's related to that, and they'll also help your fellow delegates attending this webinar better understand these genuine points of clarification, concern, and just so keep everyone on the same page, and it'll make your committee experience really smooth. So let's begin with the first question, which says that there were no quadmas or questions a resolution must answer in the background guide, and so are there none in HMUN Dubai? So a background guide format will differ from conference or committee to committee even, and it really comes down to the elements of the, let's say, background guide template that the director thinks are most relevant or most important for their committee. So in the case that we don't have quadmas for ECOFIN, I would say that this affords you a little bit more flexibility in what aspects of the agenda you want to resolve in your paperwork, so be that in your working paper or your draft resolution. And so this is not like a committee-wide, it's not a conference-wide policy that there won't be any quadmas. It perhaps differs from committee to committee. And so in ECOFIN, with no explicit questions a resolution must answer in the guide, you can look to whatever aspects of the guide of the topic you find most fitting to try to resolve in your paperwork. And so it affords you a little bit more flexibility. But if you want any more specific steering from me during conference, then I'd be more than happy to shed some light on the parts that I think you guys have focused on, and what if I were one of you writing one of these working papers or draft resolutions, what I would be looking at, since I would be doing that based on the things that you end up discussing in committee, the aspects of committee you find most relevant. Our next question is, how many delegates are in ECOFIN? This is a very good question. I don't have the specific number at hand. Perhaps Chanakia, if you're on call and you do, that would be productive. But I would say that so you should know that the ECOFIN is a mid-sized committee. So mid-size is going to be not as big as a GA, but bigger than a crisis committee significantly. And so I would suspect it would be to the tune of 100 delegates, but I'm not too sure. And yeah, we're gonna find out when we're at conference. I would just say be prepared for it to be a mid-size, so not as big as a General Assembly, which can approach 200, but not as small as a crisis committee, which is about 30. It's going to be in between those, and so the most reasonable in between to me would be about 100. Would be what I suspect we'll have at ECOFIN. Next, since this is an international conference, should we refrain from bringing up the Israel-Palestine issue, since many associated with religion, or can we refer to it? So this is also a very good question. I think that given our topics, topic A and topic B, which are specifically about augmenting human capital to reduce the skills gap and the economic future of green energy development, I don't see how either of these two topics in particular relate to the conflict in Israel-Palestine. So I would say that there is no reason that in committee it should be discussed or talked about, because the agenda is not tangential, is not related to it. There's no adjacency. There's no connection between the topics that we'll be discussing in committee and the conflict in the Middle East. And broadly as well, this is something important to note, because there's no relation, for example, between our topic and, let's say, the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, or there's no relation between our topic and the conflict at in the north of India. There's no such relations, and so I don't think that it should be a very hard to refrain from discussing them, because they aren't related to our topic. But yeah, since they're not related to our topic, one, it would be redundant it wouldn't be appropriate to be talking about them, not even out of any concerns about sensitivity, just because it's not our focus. And then two, I would go one step further to always ensure that we're being sensitive regarding these topics. And so if you can get the same message across without needing to refer to this topic, you do that. That's the best policy. And so if you want a specific answer about Israel-Palestine, I don't expect to see it mentioned in committee even once, because it has nothing to do with our topics. But even more broadly for related conflict, they have nothing to do with the skills gap or green energy. We shouldn't be talking about it. We shouldn't be hearing it. That's not our job as a committee. Perhaps other councils, such as the Security Council, would, or a historic council that looks at security conflict, might be looking at that more deeply, but not our concern. So yeah, I expect none of it discussed in our committee. It's not our focus. Next question: would I be marked better if my speeches include past examples and initiatives taken, or if I emphasize my own proposals to address the topics? So this is a really good question. I think that it's very important to strike a good balance of past actions and initiatives as well as new proposals that you have. Uh, and so I think that I would focus less on uh, like there's no one that's correct. Like it's not either you do past or you do new. Rather, use past, see what has worked in the past, and then build off of that to say, okay, I've done my research, so I know regarding topic A or topic B, these are some past actions my country took. These ones worked, these ones didn't work. And so I'm going to use the ones that worked and then adjust the ones that don't work in these new and unique ways. So that would be the best way to take what's worked and then create new elements to address what has not worked. And you could also look at how could you take something that your country has done in particular, for example, or an initiative that's happened at the wider scale, and how do you universalize it? Because again, the ECOFIN writes resolutions that address all the countries, and so how do you generalize it so that any country, at different levels of wealth, at different levels of accessibility, at different levels of access to clean energy, or labor force engagement, for example, or sorry, labor force participation. How do you ensure that these policies are applicable across? And so to do that, you might want to split them up. You might want to segment, the member states of the ECOFIN into like a category A, category B, category C was based on where they do on certain markers. Let's say with regards to energy or skills in like the labor force. And so all of this is to say there's many ways to take in the past things that you've done or initiatives that have happened in the past to show you've done your homework and done your research. But then you also want to take it always one step further with what element of this is your own. How are you personalizing it based on the research you have, but then also your own creativity with policy, and then how are you making it universal? So how can it apply to different countries, not just the one you represent? Because at the end of the day, resolutions are written for many, many more countries than one. And so it's useful to see how you're going to be able to achieve success in different regions with different existing circumstance, different policies, different best practices, and that's where creativity can really come in handy. No, but these are all really great questions. Please keep them coming. Next, we have a question about the position papers, which says that I submitted my position papers using a Harvard referencing style for citation, and then realized that the sample position paper and the guide used MLA format. Is that all right? Yeah, absolutely. Really, any citation format that is recognized, internationally. So, like, be that MLA, Chicago, Harvard, like whatever you're using as a referencing format or referencing guide for citations, like APA, it's completely acceptable as long as it's something that we recognize. So, while we always do recommend to use the citation format reference in the background guide or the position paper handout, this still works as long as I see that you have done a very active job of ensuring that you're noting the sources from which you get things. Yeah, you will not be marked down as like someone who is plagiarized. You will not face any consequences. So this is completely okay. Yeah, okay. In moderated caucuses, this is the next question, sorry. In moderated caucuses, would you prefer we jump straight to solution-based mods, or could we discuss its causes and impacts first? So really, this depends on where we fall in our committee, like diagram on our committee, in our flow of committee. And so there's this flow of committee like chart where we begin with, we talk about once we set the agenda, we talk about some of the broader dimensions of the agenda. So there are subtopics within each topic, and we'll discuss them with some mods. And then we move after that, after it's been discussed a little bit, then we move into solution-based mods, which are going to be how do we address the specific topic. I think that you can discuss its causes. I mean, I would say you should discuss its causes and impacts first, but that part can be relatively smaller because that's where everyone's read the same background guide, everyone has the same information there, and so you're not going to gain a lot from that part, but you are going to gain a lot when you jump to solution based because that's where your own creativity and your own thoughts come in. And so the quicker you're able to make that jump, the more productive it would be. And I would say even as an executive board member, we always look more favorably upon speeches that are solution focused. You have the cause / impact in the first few seconds just to contextualize or motivate your speech, and then you really want to jump into then, and that's the point after which you really want to jump into giving solutions. But if there was like a sliding scale of how much of the time in your speeches or how many speeches should be solution focused versus problem focused, many more should be solution focused than problem focused. It should be more like a 20-80, where 20 is the problem and 80 is the solution. because we know what the problem is. People are not disagreeing about what the problem is. It's more so how you're going to resolve it in a way that's equitable, that works for everyone, etc. So that's definitely our focus. Again, same. Let's do the same thing because I've run out of questions here. Let's do another like 5 minutes, a 5 minute interval, and then we'll address any final questions that you guys have. Yeah, and so let's take another 5 minutes. Send over any questions you have, and then I'll answer all of them. But yeah, no, this has been super helpful. I think these are really great questions so far. No silly questions, like anything that's on your mind, feel free to ask. I mean, I have all the time here to go over that. And I think it also, like I keep mentioning, helps both you and your fellow delegates clarify these common doubts that you might have. So really, if you're asking questions, you're very brave for doing so. So definitely recommend it. I mean, you get a lot more time as well during committee in about 15 days to ask me. But yeah, anything you can front now will just keep keep your head clear. So 4 more minutes and then questions. Awesome. So now I'll do this final round of questions for all of you. Again, keep sending them in. Feel free to interrupt at any time with more questions. We have a lot more time on this webinar if you do have more questions. So I'm happy to take anything. For now, I'll address what we have in the Q&A box. We have a question saying, do we have to make two position papers for both the agendas? So this is a good question. I would refer to the background guide here for more clarification. I suspect you could either do this in the form of like one position paper that includes both, or two position papers in like a similar format. But I think the background guide should have more clarity. So I don't remember off the top of my head which of the two we went with. And so, like format-wise, there should be a preference noted there. But yeah, like the position paper does touch on both topics, obviously, because you don't know which one is going to be set. But the format in which it should be like presented and submitted, that should be more clarification for on the background guide. And if you aren't able to find me that, please feel free to email me at the ECOFIN email address, which is on the HMUN Dubai website under the committees page. Our next question is the usage of internet permitted in the conference? This is a very good question. So the usage of internet is not permitted when you are working in room, and this means that when we have formal committee, such as moderated caucuses, speeches, etc., you cannot use internet access. In fact, you cannot use devices with the internet turned on. And so this is just to ensure that no one is distracted using a computer or anything while other people are giving speeches. We are still like a pen and paper, like a handwritten conference for all of like these aspects of formal debate. And then only when we transition to paperwork, so that's working papers and draft resolutions, we'll allow computers or we'll allow internet access and device access, but we do it in a very limited way. And so that means that only during unmoderated caucuses can you work using the internet. So when you pass an unmoderated caucus, you can take your laptop out, connect to the internet, and you can then work on your working paper or draft resolution. However, you can only work on it using Google Suite. So that means Google Docs, which everyone has access to through their email ID. And it's super easy to set up if you haven't used it in the past. And this is because Google Docs allows us as the dais to track all the contributions that different delegates have made to the document, because we can see which delegate wrote what clause, which delegate edited what clause, and then where they came from. And it makes it easier for us as well to ensure that there is no pre-writing, there's no foul play in terms of a certain delegate wrote a clause and another delegate is trying to claim credit for it, and things like that we're able to address. So we do allow internet access when we write working papers and draft resolutions, but only during unmoderated caucuses. So you need to pass those to be able to work using your computer on online on your working papers and draft resolutions. And then I believe our final question for today, since I don't see any more, but if you have any more, you can send them, is if two delegates are equally deserving of an award, which will both of them receive it? This is a very good question. I'd say that award decisions lie at the discretion of the staff and the secretariat, and it'll depend based on how many awards our committee is allocated based on its size, how many delegates attend, how many we distribute. And so if two are equally deserving of an award, there may be a time when the secretariat steps in and says, okay, we can introduce an additional award. Or let's say we have two delegates who are deserving of an outstanding delegate award. Let's remove one of the honorables and or increase one of the outstandings, like move the placement of awards around. So there's many levers and possibilities that a dais and the secretariat have. And so if we do feel like it comes out to this, that will be what happens. However, historically, for example, there have not been at any H1 conference two best delegate awards. And so even if two delegates we find are equally deserving, we have to spend a lot more time going in to the secretary and the dais. So in the dais will be me and the assistant directors, a lot more time discussing and nitpicking every element of committee to make that decision. And so you should know the deliberation process is very, very extensive. It takes us a very long time to review all delegates and ensure that we've given everyone a fair shot. And so, trust that we'll be able to manage that process effectively for all of you. We have a few more questions. Next, will there be a crisis session within committee? So no, do not plan on having a crisis session within committee, and we believe that there's enough in the topics at hand to be able to working papers and draft resolutions without having crisis elements over the course of committee. and HMUN, HMUN policy at large for ECOFINs and GAs does not lean on crisis. So do not expect that to be a crisis session within committee because I'm planning on it, and it's not a crisis type of committee. So let's focus on like the basics of working papers, draft resolutions, and try to extract as much value from there as we can at conference. And next we have which aspect has a greater priority in like delegate evaluation? Is it speeches or is it work on resolution? I'd say there is no like strict mark scheme. Like there's no, you don't get like points. Like I get 5 points for the speech, or I get 6 points for like a different clause I wrote, and there's no like scaling. There's no grading factor. It's very much a holistic evaluation process. And so, since it's a holistic evaluation process, you need to think about everything in terms of context, like how giving good speeches, connect to writing good resolutions, connect to being a leader in committee. And so these are all going to leave a very important mark. And so we're not just looking at one specific thing you did. It's a lot more broadly. What was your demeanor like? How did you collaborate with other delegates? Did you work with a wide group of people? Were you receptive to new ideas? Did you uplift other voices? These are all of the things we're looking at. And so there's no like cookie cutter, like you got 50% credit for giving a good speech, 30% credit for like writing a good resolution. There's no such format. And so I would really emphasize focusing on all the elements of being a good leader, be that giving good speeches, helping lead a good resolution, working paper, draft resolution. So those are the things that you should be focused on. There's no clear mark scheme. It's a lot more how do we feel when we think about as a whole, as a delegate, what your performance has been like, and that's what we use as our metric to make our deliberations and then decisions on the votes. Awesome. So those were all 15 questions we had for this session. I'll wait a few minutes if there's any more, but if there's no other questions, you can feel free to disconnect from the webinar. Thank you all so much for your time today. It's been super helpful to know where your minds are and be able to answer some of your questions. Again, as always, feel free to reach out at the ECOFIN email address if you have any further questions, and I'll give the email address for all of your reference in the chat as well. And so you can feel free to email any further questions you have there. I'll also put my secretariat email ID, which you can CC because it might help me see it a little quicker. Yeah, but those are the questions we have for today. I see a few additional ones. These were answered before, so I can just go over them really quickly. As for position papers, please reference the background guide because that'll have the most up-to-date format on how you want to submit position papers for 2 different topics. And then for award structure, we don't have the I can't guarantee what it looks like, but the one mentioned in the chat here, which is best delegate, outstanding delegate, honorable delegate, honorable mention structures, they're typically what we go with. Sometimes there'll be like a diplomatic commendation or that's a verbal award, so verbal commendation, or sometimes as a diplomatic commendation. We might have verbal awards, but yeah, that's the typical award structure. So that's definitely also correct. But yeah, if there's nothing else, I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to close the session, and I will see you all in 2 weeks' time. Again, both email addresses for further queries are in the chat. I know that you guys asked some things that are on your mind right now, but as you do more research, as you get closer to committee, I'm sure more things will come up. And so feel free to reach me at either of those email addresses, and I'm more than accessible to answer any of those queries there. But awesome, thank you guys so much. Chanakya, are you here? Oh, he is. Hi. Yeah, I think we're good to go on session.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much again for attending, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.